In a quaint little town nestled between rolling hills and winding rivers, there lived a woman named Sarah. Sarah was expecting her first child, and the anticipation of motherhood filled her heart with joy and excitement. However, fate had a different plan in store for her on that fateful day. It was a chilly evening when Sarah felt the first pangs of labor. With her husband away on a business trip and no close family nearby, she found herself alone, grappling with the throes of childbirth. Desperate and in pain, she mustered all her strength and called for help. But little did she know that help would come from the unlikeliest of places. Across town, a man named Jack was prowling the streets, searching for his next target. Jack was not your typical criminal, he was a jobber, a small-time thief who eked out a living by stealing from unsuspecting victims. However, Jack was not driven by greed or malice. He was a man burdened by circumstances, struggling to make ends meet in a world that had dealt him a cruel hand. As Jack wandered the streets, his thoughts consumed by desperation, he stumbled upon Sarah's modest home. Seeing the lights dimmed and the curtains drawn, he sensed an opportunity. With a heavy heart and a gnawing sense of guilt, he made his way to the front door, his mind clouded by the urgency of his situation. Inside the house, Sarah's contractions were growing stronger, and her cries echoed through the empty rooms. In her moment of despair, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Fear gripped her heart as she braced herself for the worst. But to her astonishment, it was not the face of a menacing intruder that greeted her, but that of a weary, disheveled man. Jack stood before her, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and desperation. In a hoarse voice, he pleaded with her to remain calm, explaining that he meant her no harm. Sarah, though startled, found herself drawn to the vulnerability in Jack's eyes. Despite her own predicament, she felt a surge of compassion for the troubled stranger standing before her. As Jack hesitated at the doorway, Sarah's labor pains intensified, and she struggled to catch her breath. Sensing her distress, Jack's expression softened, and without a second thought, he rushed to her side. Ignoring his own fears and doubts, he did his best to comfort her, offering words of encouragement and support. In that moment of shared vulnerability, Sarah and Jack formed an unlikely bond, bound together by the threads of fate. As Sarah's contractions grew more frequent, Jack's own afflictions began to surface. Gasping for air, he reached for his inhaler, only to realize that he had left it behind in his haste to flee. With each passing moment, Jack's condition worsened, his chest tightening as the weight of his actions bore down on him. But even in his darkest hour, Sarah refused to turn her back on him. Summoning all her strength, she helped Jack to his feet, guiding him to a nearby chair as she struggled to catch her breath. In that fleeting moment of vulnerability, Sarah and Jack found solace in each other's presence, united by the shared experience of pain and desperation. And as the final moments of Sarah's labor drew near, Jack made a solemn vow to her, promising to stand by her side, no matter the cost. With Jack's help, Sarah managed to make her way to the hospital, where she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. And though their encounter had begun under the shadow of fear and uncertainty, it ended with a newfound sense of hope and redemption. As for Jack, he never returned to a life of crime. Inspired by Sarah's kindness and compassion, he sought to make amends for his past misdeeds, dedicating his life to helping others in need. And though he never forgot the events of that fateful night, he found peace in the knowledge that sometimes salvation comes from the unlikeliest of sources. In the end, Sarah and Jack's story served as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is always hope to be found, and that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness can arise from the most unexpected of circumstances.